All right, so hello everyone. Welcome to the 2021 virtual SMA conference. My name is Sarah and I'm from SMA's Family Support Department. And we thank you for joining us for the Addressing the Missing Piece, Mental Health and SMA session today. We're grateful for our national presenting sponsors, Biogen, Genentech, and Novartis Gene Therapies for their incredible support, of the 2021 virtual SMA conference. We greatly encourage your interaction and live questions for this session. So feel free to raise your hand and then you can unmute yourself and use the Zoom chat here to add any questions that you might have throughout the session. So we'll be addressing them as they come in. So we really encourage you to just send in your questions or raise your hand whenever it comes up. And let's see here. We are now ready to get going. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Julie Feinberg. Julie?
Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming today. I'm really excited to be here, and it's really kind of an honor to present for my own community. I always love coming home. I have SMA myself. I have type 2 SMA. I've been involved in the disability community my whole life, I guess. And like I said, my name is Julia. I'm a fourth-year doctoral candidate in clinical psychology, where I'm learning how to be a therapist, and I'm specializing in people with disabilities. And it's really for my community and y'all that I'm kind of hoping to be able to work with in the future. Before this, I worked in disability politics, advocacy, healthcare, education, and I try to bring that to my work as much as possible. And that means that I really, really, really do hope that this is going to be interactive. I hope it's going to be a dialogue, a conversation, because though I'm definitely learning some things on the mental health side, all of us together are what really makes us an expert and kind of learning how to get through this together. So I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for coming. And please just join whenever. I have some questions throughout, but if anything comes to you, just please join. So what we'll be talking about today is kind of just a little bit about what we know about mental health and SMA itself, and then why do we care about mental health, specifically for the SMA community. We'll also be talking about things that impact mental health, and then at the end, what you can do about it. And I'm really hoping that we can have a good conversation there and kind of share tips and tricks about how you've gotten through some tough times. So what do we know about SMA and mental health? I'm doing my dissertation on it, so I've been reading a lot, and it's been a little bit disappointing. We don't know enough. There's so much more that we really need to know about SMA and the people that are in their life, their friends, their family, their parents, their children, their partners. So if you are at all interested in this, please, I really encourage you, go out, do research, get grants. We need more. We need you here. And it's also because it's a little bit murky. Some of the studies and research say that there's much higher rates of mental health issues in the SMA population in ways that are similar to ALS or MS or other similar disabilities. And then there are some studies that say, actually, it's the same as our non-disabled peers or people who don't have a loved one with SMA in their life. We also know from the research that it's a really underserved community. We don't get as much mental health as we need or we want. Over and over again in the research, participants said that we want as much mental health care and support as we do for our pulmonary care, as we do for our neurology care. So this is a huge unmet need. So why is mental health so critical for people with SMA and then people who have loved ones with SMA in their life? I'm really curious what y'all think. Anybody have ideas or want to kind of share?
I like to think that mental health is really important because we already have enough trouble taking care of our physical bodies, and whatever we can't control mentally, I think that makes a big difference in our outlook specifically.
Absolutely. I think you really hit the nail on the head there. That's one of the things that I listed. That's one of the first things that our physical health is huge. It's a huge part of kind of what we think about and how we navigate our life. And mental health is integrally tied to that. That's exactly right. Thanks for sharing that. What about
Rachel Brown? From my perspective, I'm a caregiver. My daughter's 3 and has SMA, so I think it's been a struggle as a parent and having your life as a parent changed. And so for me, if I don't take care of her mental health, there's just no way that I can be a good caregiver to her and to the rest of my family.
Yeah, absolutely. The mental health of the people who are surrounding people with SMA is just important as the person who has SMA themselves. Yeah, if you aren't there to be able to kind of take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. Kind of that old adage of put kind of the oxygen mask on yourself before someone else. Exactly. Thank you. Does anyone else want to kind of pop in and share their thoughts?
It looks like Leah wrote in the chat, our mental health is everything, including physical.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and then I see because SMA is progressive, that's a huge one, right? And that might be changing a little bit because of all of the different kind of treatments that are coming into play here. That's definitely going to add new issues and protective factors for your mental health. But that's absolutely right, because it's progressive. It's really going to impact your mental health in some serious and significant ways. We are confronted with loss of function and friends. Absolutely, Amber. Yeah, thank you all for bringing that up. Losing kind of parts of your body or parts of yourself or people you love in your life is huge. It's going to have a huge impact on kind of how you see yourself. It's going to bring on a lot of stress and anxiety and depression. Absolutely. Thank you all for bringing those up. You kind of did my job for me, so thank you. I'll go through some of these, and we've already talked about a lot of them so far. So I have some things about just what do depression and anxiety look like? It's going to impact your appetite. You might eat a lot more, a lot less. You might have some sleep issues. You might have insomnia or wake up a lot throughout the night, not just because you need to reposition and turn or because you're helping someone reposition or turn, but because your anxiety or your depression is waking you up. Psychomotor retardation, that's kind of clinical psychobabble for you're not moving your arms or your body or your legs. Depression can actually slow your body down physically, which I think is really important to know for our community. You're going to feel exhausted a lot of the times when you're depressed. You're going to feel like you have no energy at all as soon as you wake up in the morning. You're going to have difficulty kind of making decisions. One of the symptoms of depression and anxiety is actually being indecisive, and it's having difficulty concentrating or focusing. And then lastly, feeling a ton of guilt. You're going to feel guilty all the time for things that you did or didn't do, or who you are, or how you go through the world. You're also going to feel worthless and feel pretty bad about yourself. So I'm curious, how do you think all of these different ways that depression and anxiety show up could impact someone with SMA or people with loved ones in their life? What do you think?
Well, I mean, like starting from the top of the list, having decreased or increased appetite, obviously if you're not eating as much, you're going to be even more fatigued. Increased appetite, you're going to put on more weight, which I've seen others that put on weight. It just makes it even more difficult to be mobile and move around and do the things that they normally do. Yeah, same thing with like the sleep disturbances. If you don't sleep good, you're not going to feel good, physically or mentally. And yeah, it all kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. And um, I think in a lot of SMA clinics, the nutritionist comes in and tells us what to eat and, how to have the right calories, the right vitamins or amount of protein, but they're not asking about depression or anxiety. They're not asking, are there other things that are going on besides your ability to chew and swallow that are impacting the amount of calories that you're getting? And this is huge. Like you said, if you lose function because you're not eating, that really matters. And like you said, if you gain weight, that impacts you and all your caregivers. Exactly. What do other people think about this? Are there other ones that kind of popped out to you?
I would personally say for me, it would be the excessive guilt
Mm,
and um how I feel guilty about the loss of function that I can't control, and then my caregivers have to increase what they're doing.
yes, absolutely. Roseanne, yes. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I think that's a huge one that we don't talk about really. As much as we should. I think it's hard because right here you can see how much SMA and mental health are so interlinked. The excessive guilt of what it means to lose function and how it's going to impact other people in your life or yourself. Um, and how that excessive guilt, I'm not sure how that plays out in your life or with other people in your world, or for if you're a parent and you feel guilty about maybe what you did or didn't do for your child, if you're a partner for feeling guilty for whatever it is. And I'm thinking sometimes, as someone who's learning how to be a therapist, I wonder if this is the SMA and what's going on, or I wonder if this is the depression talking. And if this is the depression talking, then how can we address that so that if you're feeling excessive guilt and it's impacting you in negative ways, maybe you don't ask for help as much as you need to. Maybe you need to turn in the middle of the night and you're going to get a bed sore, but you don't ask for it. Maybe you're burnt out as a friend who's been helping someone with SMA and you need time off, but you feel really guilty about it. These are those really sticky, tricky situations that I think it's really important that we kind of address and get some help on and just talk about in general. So thank you so much for bringing that one up. I think they're all really important in that one too. I see some things in the chat. I'm seeing excessive guilt. Yes. Indecisiveness, communication with caregivers can become more difficult with guilt and being indecisive. Exactly. Yep. It makes it hard to accomplish tasks. Absolutely. I think another side effect of depression or anxiety is lack of motivation. Thank you so much, Benjamin, for bringing that up. Are there things in the chat that people want to talk more about? I think we could talk about all of them for hours. Is there one that kind of popped out in the chat that we'd like to kind of run with right now for a little bit? Okay, maybe we'll come back to this at the end because I want to make sure we have enough time to get to some other things, but all of those are really important in the chat, and thank you so much for bringing them all up. And anytime that there's something else, please stop me. I'm very happy to have this be a dialogue and not a lecture. Okay, so this is your turn again. What things might impact your mental health? We talked about it a little bit, and I think we talked about a lot of the things that I was going to bring up. We talked about physical health. We talked about losing people with SMA and losing function. That's huge. I would definitely absolutely call that a trauma. It's a huge loss, whether it's your own physical function or people in your life that you care about. And when you see other people lose function or when you see other people pass away, it's incredibly difficult and it's going to affect your mental health because you're losing someone that you love. You're also losing function in terms of what you can do or how you might live your life. But it's also a little bit, or a lot bit actually, very stressful and anxiety provoking. And it can make you kind of think about your own future of yourself or the person that has SMA in your life. And so even though it might not be close to you in terms of someone else passing away with SMA, it's a reflection maybe of what could happen, and it could absolutely kind of start anxiety or depression. One that I also want to highlight is access to services and supports. With SMA comes a whole host of things that we need assistance with to live our life the way we want to. We need wheelchairs, we need attendant care, we need accessible housing. And these are all things that we need services for a lot of the times. If you don't have an SMA clinic nearby that you have access to, that makes your life a lot more difficult. If you don't have attendant supports, it's going to severely impact your mental health if your body isn't getting the assistance that it needs. And in terms of supports, I'm also thinking social supports. You have good family and friends and partners and coworkers that you can count on to be there for you if something happens or you just need someone to talk to. And for ableism, I think this is also something that we don't talk enough about. Ableism shows up everywhere: discrimination, stigma, stereotypes. All of those things have huge literatures and research bases that really, really strongly negatively affect your mental health. So if you're experiencing discrimination in the workforce, if you can't get a job because of your disability, if you can't get housing, it's a lot of times really hard to get accessible housing. In the dating world, I know we talk a lot about this amongst ourselves. If you're constantly getting rejected because of your disability, that's gonna take a hit on your confidence, and it's gonna make you really nervous and unable to trust other people in some ways too. It's kind of everywhere, and I think it's important that we name it. Abuse and neglect is also something that there are just much, much higher rates of in the disability community, especially for physically disabled people. I think it's important for us to be aware of, especially if you have a disability yourself or someone who's a loved one that is in your life, just to be aware of it, especially if you are in an assisted living home. We need to protect ourselves and our community. Other marginalized identities, if you have SMA, you also have other identities that you have. You're not just an SMA human being, or you're not just a parent of someone who has SMA, or a husband or a wife or a partner or a child. You probably have other marginalized identities, ones like class and race and immigration status are going to affect all of these other things. They're going to affect your access to services, maybe different traumas that you experience, abuse and neglect, other discriminations. And I think it's important that we kind of acknowledge how all of those come into play when we think about it. I saw some things in the chat. Let me see. Fear about the future. I'm a huge worrier. Yeah, I think SMA makes you a huge stress ball, especially before all of the treatments that came out. You never know when you were going to lose function yourself or someone that you cared about with SMA would. It always felt maybe a little bit like a gamble, like you couldn't quite count on or see what future you might have because you didn't know what body you were going to be in. So it makes a lot of sense that you're a huge worrier. Chronic pain, thank you so much for bringing that up, Kelly. Chronic pain has a direct link to much more anxiety and depression. And I really hope that you're getting help for chronic pain, because that is something that we know how to treat. But I think you're right, chronic pain and SMA is huge. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, absolutely. Lower lack of self-esteem. Does anyone want to kind of talk about that? Denise brought that up in the chat, and I think that's a really important one. What do people think about kind of self-esteem, how we think about ourselves? And this is for people with SMA totally, but also people who have loved ones with SMA, partners, friends, children of people with SMA, parents. What do people think about that one?
I mean, I totally get it. To kind of link this back to that, guilt we mentioned earlier. I'm sure a lot of you here in this meeting know who Shane Burkaw is, and he's actually mentioned and talked about this type of burden complex that people with SMA oftentimes develop. And I think in my experience, I've seen that a lot in myself. I've seen it in other people with SMA as well. It's just one of those unfortunate things that you kind of sometimes develop as you're growing up and experiencing living with SMA. And so, yeah, it's really important to kind of see that and be able to surround yourself with the right people and ideology to convince yourself and prove to yourself that you are more than, like we've been talking about, someone with SMA. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think it's great that you brought back up guilt, because I think guilt and lower self-esteem are really, really tied together. If you feel guilty about how you are as a partner to someone with SMA, or even a roommate, or SMA yourself, it's probably going to impact your self-esteem and not in a positive way. And I think a lot of that also depends on everything that we've talked about here and kind of in the chat before. Do you have access to services? If you have enough attendant care and you feel like you're well supported, you might feel a little bit less guilty about asking for help than from a caregiver who's really strained. If you're experiencing a lot of ableism, a lot of discrimination, then you're probably going to have lower self-esteem. It's really hard to unpack your internalized ableism. And I think having that community, kind of that you talked about, Dominique, is that your Dominique? Yeah. To have like the right ideology, like you said, of how do I see myself in a positive way. I think I just saw someone raise their hand.
Yes, it looks like we have Sylvia.
I did, Julia. My name is Sylvia, and I just want to reiterate what Dominic said about the people that you are with and the people that surround you. I was diagnosed 44 years ago as a late adult, and it has been having the right kind of people around me. It's getting over that stage of not wanting to ask for help. People want to help, but they want to be asked. They're not going to just jump in. They, for the most part, they'll wait and ask, or let you ask them. And it does take some of that mental health attitude of thinking about what I can still do. And so I may be the oldest one here. And when I was the age of you, Julia, and Dominic, there was nothing on the horizon as far as treatment. I received my first treatment 3 years ago. And they've made so much progress. And so it is so important for us to keep that positive attitude about what we can still do. I still get that guilt feeling when I have to interrupt my husband and get him to do something for me. And yet I realize that it's that support that has gotten me to the stage that I am now, as well as a father who said, CANT is not a word for our vocabulary. So that's my bit of wisdom from this older lady in the group.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's really important to have kind of the wisdom of people who have lived this life for a long time. So I really want to thank you for sharing that and talking about how difficult it can be to ask for help, even as an adult, maybe especially as an adult, and the dynamic that you and your husband have, and how much that's been important for you, kind of empowering yourself to be able to ask for the things that you need. So thank you for sharing that. And we have some more things in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing all those. Yep, scary in public and feeling like you have to kind of, you don't want to look disabled, right? You don't want to look slovenly. You don't want to look dirty. You don't want to look unkempt. And being on point can be draining. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Share is your best friend. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. We come with a lot of things, and it's important to acknowledge that. And they can really impact our self-esteem and kind of put us on edge and be really stressful about how is this other person going to take it. But yep, finding love detrimental to your mental health, absolutely. I think we talk about a lot within our own Facebook group sometimes. Let's see. Oh, this chat's awesome. Thank you everyone for putting this in. Finding a look for yourself helps your self-esteem. By look, I mean that, for example, you might love wearing a certain style or color of clothing, so make it your own. Benjamin, oh, cool. I don't know that. I hope you all get a fabulous look and kind of dress up, just like we had someone say before. Carly, well, if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to look, feel like a burden because you require so much care, absolutely. And I think especially like we talked about, Kristen, if you don't have enough support from services, it's going to feel like it's being a strain. And if there's a lot of discrimination and stigma around it, saying that it's not okay to ask for help or that you are a burden. Parents, thank you for bringing in that perspective, Tina. I really appreciate that. Guilt that they may have passed this to their children, guilt that they can't cure their children's condition. Absolutely. I think that's really powerful. Do we have some parents who want to talk to that right now? That's okay if not. I think that's a really important point.
It also looks like we've got Viola's hand up.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Let's go to Viola.
Hey, Julia. So nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
I'm so happy to have this conversation because I think that one area that I don't see a lot talked about, but I see for this other group of people, there being more exposure is caregiver support. So there's a lot of talk in the media because caregivers can be parents, they can be actual caregivers to seniors and other people. And there's all this talk on burnout and support and wellness for the caregiver. And I think what we don't talk about enough in the disability community is when we receive care, it's like we're working too oftentimes, especially if it's from employees that we have to manage. And that can take an emotional toll. It's exhausting. And I think that, you know, as you're developing your career, if to talk more about this, it's very therapeutic.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing up the point. I saw a couple of people nodding their head. I think it's kind of a joke that it's like a part-time job, just managing your attendance, just hiring, firing, and managing, because we are an employer. And for parents, I see some people in the chat. I'm really glad that parents are here too. You do that too. If you have caregivers for your kids with SMA, who, you know, as they're growing up, you might need to bring in some care, and you might feel some guilt also that you can't be the only caregiver for your child. And then there's a lot of stress and anxiety about managing those relationships, I think, as well. It's, in a little bit of ways, I think of it as like mutually assured destruction. I can't fire you because I need to go to the bathroom and I want to get out of my chair, and you can't leave me because you need this job. And it doesn't always create the most healthy dynamic for either party. And for parents as well, you might say, this person is a terrible personal care attendant, but I need to sleep at night and I trust that they're not going to abuse my child, so I'm not going to fire them. And we're always put in those really rock and hard place positions. And I think a lot of it really has a huge toll on your mental health. So thank you for bringing that up.
Julia, it looks like the chat Desiree wanted to respond.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Desiree, you can unmute yourself.
Hi. When Sylvia was talking earlier about how Cant is not a word that would be in her vocabulary, that was a very similar basic life point that my grandparents and my father taught me. But then I got Spinraza a few years ago, and all of a sudden I was being told that I had to focus on what I couldn't do so that I could improve on what I couldn't do. And that really kind of threw me for a loop for a long time. It still does even today, as sometimes my injections don't come on time, so suddenly I'm losing the ability again. And when you're being told for so long that you can't do things and you have to focus on what you can do, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, nope, change that. You have to go back 5,000 steps and start back to the beginning and suddenly look at everything that you can't do just so that you can improve. And I think that's something that I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but that's something that really, really messed with my mental health.
Yeah, I think I saw some nods in the crowd, so thank you for bringing that up, Desiree. I think the treatments have come as a huge source of relief for a lot of people and a huge celebration, but I think it also has a lot of other really important stressors that we don't talk about. When your injection isn't coming, or you have issues with insurance, it didn't improve it, or I'm feeling weak again. And if you're seeing your partner who has SMA get weak again, and you think, okay, how do we live this life that we used to, where I needed to help more, but now they're doing okay, and going back and forth. It's not, there's a lot of instability, and there's a lot of I've just been noticing kind of, it's hard to know who you are in some ways, of what your body can do and what it can't from one day to the next. And I could imagine, I'm not a parent of someone with SMA or a partner, but I could see how it would also be really hard to know how to navigate that. Do I push them to exercise? Do I not? Like, how do I step in and help when I need to? Or can they do this right now? They used to be able to feed themselves, but today they can't. How do we navigate that? So I think that's really important. So thank you for bringing that up. But I really hope that it's something we talk about more because it's kind of the new era of SMA and how we're kind of navigating our bodies. We have a lot of things coming up in the chat right now. Is there, there's a lot of stuff in the chat and I think it's all really important. Does someone want to kind of share something from the chat that they wrote, or does someone see something in the chat that they want to kind of bounce off of and talk about a little bit more? And that's okay if not. We can go to the next slide. There's more.
Actually, I have.
Oh, awesome.
Sorry.
No, that's why I asked.
I noticed that Scott said that their 5-year-old granddaughter is wondering why their brother can walk and why she can't. And I'm actually kind of surprised to hear that. I never had that thought as a child, but I think that a way that you could perhaps get her to sort of understand and come to terms with that is seeing, even though she can't move her legs the same way that her brother can, that you can turn it around as she is young to a sort of superpower where you have a wheelchair that helps you get around and makes you sort of special in a way, like a character on a TV show where you can do things that he can't do and vice versa, and kind of make her see that there are things that even though she can't walk and she can't she can't climb monkey bars or do stuff like that, maybe she can go and get to certain places that he can't go because he's not disabled. I always call that kind of Cripple Perks, because I've done that, like going to the head of a line at Disney World, or like doing certain things that suddenly you can do because you're disabled, like being able to meet somebody famous, or suddenly being able to go up to somebody because you're in a wheelchair. So, hey, you kind of have to talk to me, because people feel guilty sometimes if they don't talk to you. So if there's maybe when they're older and the brother wants to talk to a girl or a boy, then maybe she can be like, yo, I got you. And they can be kind of not codependent, but help each other out and know how they can help each other out. Confidence. And boost both of their confidences.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of that really quick. I really like that outlook. I like the whole like superpower analogy of the chair and all that. And it makes a lot of sense to me. It's really cool because especially with kids, they're so impressionable. If you can create that kind of positive outlook on, their sibling with a disability, then that's automatically gonna, stay with them, and they're gonna associate that positive outlook with other disabled people they see out in the community, either with SMA or not. And that's huge. Like, just with, tagging along back to ableism and, marginalized identities. If we can, teach kids at a young age that we can embrace those different from us, that would be huge, so.
Thank you both of you for saying those are brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. Did anyone else want to kind of respond to Scott's question? Anything else we haven't touched on there? Okay, I think I think that's brilliant. Just kind of changing how you think about yourself and kind of saying that you're special. And if she can have role models who look like her, that's really important. I think they have more and more kind of media presence of people with disabilities, and it kind of when kind of Desiree and Dominique were talking, kind of a quote that came to mind is from Ed Roberts, who's kind of one of the grandfathers of like the disability movement and the independent living movement. And he said that he had polio, and after one of the first times he was kind of going out into public with his wheelchair and his ventilator, everyone was staring at him. And he said, in that moment, I could either know that people were staring at me and think about it because I'm different and I'm weird and I have a disability, or I could tell myself they're staring at me because I'm a rock star and everyone stares at rock stars. So I think that could be also a really cool way, like Dominique and Desiree were saying, of just saying that your granddaughter is special and people are looking at you because they think you're really cool, might help when she's younger. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to go to the next slide and kind of open it up for discussion again. What helps you with your mental health when you're feeling anxious or depressed or whatever it is? What helps you get through? What helps you cope?
I have a thing.
Yeah.
I always love to try and find coping mechanisms, which is the term that I found a lot of people use, and finding things that I can do that I can fixate on are usually really helpful, like reading. Reading can really, really help because you can suddenly be transformed into another world and another being. And you don't really need all that much assistance to read, especially nowadays with e-readers and audiobooks and being able to read on your phone. I mean, I remember when I was little, I used to despise the fact that I couldn't read in bed because I couldn't hold the book. But between reading and maybe, depending on how much muscle you have, painting or drawing or writing or even swimming, any little physical movement that you can do in order to kind of get that nervous energy out. Because I like to equate to regular, as I call them, two-legged people that can walk. They can go out and they can run, or they can go boxing, or they can go do something physical in order to make themselves feel better, but we can't do that. So there are some things, granted you have to search for them, but there are some things that are physical that you can do in order to have that similar effect, like riding a horse or swimming, or even just going around the block and just being outside and feeling the vibrations of your chair, because sometimes even that, it's the physical contact. And I find that helps, and especially with music as well, because you can always get obsessed over your favorite bands.
Yeah, awesome. You nailed a lot of things that I had on my list. Yeah, reading, I think kind of fantasy, going into another world is huge. Being able to kind of, get out of your own head, go into someone else's through reading. It's therapeutic for everyone, whether you're a parent or a partner, a child, or someone with SMA yourself. Music, always, it can have a huge impact on your mental health depending on what kind of music you're listening to. And I think, the physical activity, I have on my list exercise. I know that's not something that, we are used to doing, but there's a ton of research that says exercise for everyone is really important for your mental health. I also see music, talking things out, gaming, creative outlets, video games, it's huge. And they're getting more and more adaptive every year. And with video games, I'm not a huge gamer myself, but I have a lot of friends who are, and there's huge communities. It's a huge social activity that you can do as well, and you can make your own avatars into whatever body you want. And for kind of friends and family with people with SMA, I'd love to hear what you do also to take care of yourself for your mental health. there any parents or partners or friends who want to share?
I got something to add. So definitely, I would say one of my biggest things that always helped me going through life was MDA camp. I don't know if a lot of people in here have gone to it, but getting that 1 week away to spend time with other people just like you, because like for instance, me, I live up in the mountains and there's no public transportation. Most of my friends that are in the same situation I am, they're over 2 hours away from me. And that 1 week every year always took everything out of my head and made me focus on getting to enjoy life with and not worry actual physical life. So that's just one of my biggest things. And unfortunately, being older and you graduate from these camps, it definitely makes it harder to find stuff that can take away from actual life. And I definitely agree, video games. One of my favorite things to do is I actually have a side-by-side that's set up for my friend to put me in it when we go trail riding all the time. So
That's awesome. I want to get that.
yeah.
Get a side by side.
There's definitely some cool stuff out there. I even have a track chair, so
I'm very jealous. Yeah, I think MGA camp is huge for everyone with SMA and everyone with someone with SMA in their life. I know it's a place where you don't have to worry about your needs. We've talked so much about the excessive guilt and feeling like a burden and feeling like it's hard to ask for things, but it's expected, it's encouraged at SMA, and it's kind of fun too, the relationship that you have with the people who are you go to the bathroom. And I think also for family members, it's a time for them also to kind of rest and get some space for passions that they have that they might want to engage in and be able to take a breath for a moment. I think you're right that it sucks that it ends when you graduate. I wish that it would continue for a long time because I think it's a huge asset to everyone.
Yeah, I know, like out here, I live in Arizona. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Jet Foundation, but I guess they have a adults camp they're trying to do, but with COVID and everything going on, they had to cancel last year, and they're hoping to do it this year for adults 18 and older. So it'd be definitely a really cool thing, and being able to go and enjoy life like I did growing up, it'd probably be a whole ball game changer. So
definitely, it rejuvenates you for the year.
Yeah,
it gives you that confidence boost that like, hey, I'm kind of awesome. And you're at a camp where everyone got that. They didn't just see your chair and kind of all the disability stuff. They saw you.
Yeah, and you get to boss around all the people that can walk. That's the best part.
We are the dominant force now.
Exactly.
Definitely. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a huge thing for our community. Tiffany, I see that you're raising your hand. Do you want to join?
Yes, so I have a question. My daughter is 6, and I'm wondering how I can be proactive in her mental health, especially since I'm already seeing her exhibit anxiety, especially with separation and doctor appointments, hospital stays, things like that. How can I help her and just kind of be proactive starting now at a younger age?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's really, I want to thank you on her behalf for asking about this at such a young age. I think a lot of parents don't think about this. What do people with SMA think about this? What would you have wanted when you were 6 and you were feeling a lot of separation anxiety and stress and kind of fear of all the doctor's appointments? I'm not the expert on everything, so I think it's important to get a lot of other voices. I see you be encouraging and willing to talk. What do some people think?
I'll say a thing. I used to, when I was little and I would get the separation anxiety, I would always have something small in my hand, like maybe a stuffed animal or a favorite toy, something that I could give a personality to, so I didn't feel so alone. And that way, when I was physically alone from my parents, I wasn't mentally alone because I could still talk to whatever I had in my hand. Like if there is a favorite television show and there's some merchandise where you can have maybe even a watch that has the face of your favorite character. Kids' imaginations are so moldable and so free that they can make a personality out of anything if you just give them the tools in order to do so.
Thank you. I think that's great. I think having, something that she can take wherever she goes, so she doesn't feel alone, so she doesn't feel like there's no one there to protect her and help her. I think that's a really good point. Alina, or were you going to answer Tiffanys question, or were you? Okay, great.
One of the things that helped me a lot growing up, I'm an adult with SMA. I'm over 45 years old, and one of the things that really helped me growing up is that my parents, number one, in terms of my cognitive abilities, they were very quick to recognize I was just as smart or smarter than some of my peers. And so they didn't cut me a lot of slack when it came to certain things. They treated me the same as they did my brother, who does not have SMA. And yet at the same time, they allowed, they tried to get me to do as many things as my brother did, but they were also very, very clear in helping me understand that, that we were different, but not different in a bad way, that I had certain abilities he didn't have, he had certain abilities that I didn't have. So that if we went somewhere and we did something together and he could, for example, climb a tree and I could not, then my parents made sure that I had other things to do. I either had a coloring book, I either had a puzzle, I either had a game, or they created stuff that we could do together. But they always made me feel like I was part of the equation. And also, if I misbehaved, I got, punished just like he did. I mean, there was, no pity at this table, that's for sure, and I think that really helped me. It helped me quite a bit because I was able to grow up into, into understanding who I was as a person with a disability, to understanding that I had my, that I had my own self-worth and value, that I was different than the next person, not necessarily because I was disabled, but like you said, I have many identities. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a mother, I'm a professional. I had a lot of identities, and disability is one of them. And I think when you start teaching that to your child, Tiffany, when they're very, very young, it really helps a lot. It helped me quite a bit.
Alina, I'm so sorry. We're actually going to get kicked off in about a minute. So I just have to close things up, I appreciate everyone for joining so much and being so interactive. I know Julia had a couple of items she wanted to highlight on this slide. Big thank you to Julia. Thank you to everyone. Be sure to fill out the survey. It's back on the agenda page here. You're also going to get an email, and you can continue this conversation in the chat feature there as well. I'm sure Julia will be able to answer throughout the week as well. And then I also just wanted to give another big thank you to our sponsors for sponsoring the 2021 virtual SMA conference. Thank you so much, Julia. I'll let you say any closing comments before we get closed off here.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone for joining the chat. This was, in the conversation, this was really incredible. And please use the chat feature. I'll be answering your questions and we can continue this dialogue if there's other things. I know we didn't get to everything, probably Tiffany and everyone in the chat who asked questions. So please keep this discussion going and bring it up whenever you have a chance with your doctors and everyone in your life. Thank you, and take care of yourself out there. Please be safe.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. All right. And then Julia, we'll just have you click the.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Stop share. Bye. Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna close the meeting now. Bye.